Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Sophie and today's video is going to be my December reading wrap up and my January TBR. So before we get into the video, please remember to like if you've enjoyed it and subscribe for more bookish content. I post videos every Sunday. So in December, I read 13 books and DNF'd one. My average rating was 3.69 and I read a total of 5,568 pages. So a little bit less than the previous month, but still happy with it nonetheless. So the first book I read in December was The Oleander Sword by Tasha Suri. I gave this one 4 stars. So this is the second book in the, I think it's called the Jasmine Throne series. I'm not quite sure what the series is called, but this is a really good fantasy series. It really expanded the world and really drove the plot forward ready for book 3. This really didn't suffer with middle book syndrome. There was a lot of action, a lot of things going on, which I really enjoyed. The characters and the world is really interesting, and yeah, like the magic system is really cool. I'd highly recommend this series if you haven't already read it. I'll link above my wrap up where I read the first and explain the first book a bit better in that one. Then I read A Very Merry Bromance by Lisa K. Adams and I gave this one 4 stars. This is the 5th book, I think, in the Bromance Book Club series, the Christmas special, and the Bromance Book Club follows a group of men who read romance books in order to become better husbands, better boyfriends, and understand their wives a bit better and understand what they want. It's a really fun series. The men in this series are just so amazing. Like, they just love their wives and girlfriends so much, and like they're just really nice men. And yeah, it's a really fun series to read. So in this one we follow Colton and Gretchen. Colton is a country music star and Gretchen is a lawyer. They had a one-night stand about a year prior to the start of this book, and then they sort of meet again, and Colton is determined to get Gretchen to fall in love with him, and it's just a really sweet story. There's a lot more to it than that. I did read this in a Reading Christmas Romances reading vlog, so I'll link that one above and you can hear more of my thoughts there. But yeah, this was a really cute and really festive addition to the series. I really loved Colton and Gretchen as a couple and as individual characters as well. They were both really interesting, and it's really interesting to see these sort of opposite dynamics that they had to each other. Yeah, really likable characters, and like the whole concept is like a found family kind of thing. There's really something for everyone in this series. So yeah, highly recommend this series if you love romance. Another festive romance I read was All I Want for Christmas by Maggie Knox, and I gave this one 2.5 stars. Really, I think it's more of a 2-star. I really didn't love this one very much. So we're following Sadie and Max, who are contestants on a sort of like music competition program, and Max is the son of a very famous musician, so it's kind of rigged to get him to the final, and they do a duet together in one of the challenges, and then this video goes viral about them, and they are basically forced to be a duo in the rest of this competition. They win the competition and then they pretend to fake date as well to get more votes, and then we just kind of go from there. So like, they don't see each other for like a year. This was a really weird one. I really didn't love the relationship. The relationship really felt all over the place. Like, so Maggie Knox is an author duo, and it felt like they sort of both wrote separate scenes for the couple and then just kind of like mashed them together. They really didn't gel very well, and there was like a lot of conflict in here that was then like brushed aside, never mentioned again, and it was like supposed to be a really big deal, and then in the next chapter they're like shagging, and it's just like, okay. Yeah, I did enjoy this, but like wouldn't even say I enjoyed it. I sort of liked this one, but I wouldn't really recommend it, and I don't think, yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. It's not really very good, hence why I gave it 2.5 stars. It was a quick read though, so it depends. If it sounds interesting to you, I'd maybe give it a go, but yeah, I just really didn't love this one. I then read The Housemaid is Watching by Frida McFadden, and I gave this one a 4.5 stars. So we're following Millie and Enzo once again as, you know, trouble follows them wherever they go. They are now married with children and they move into a really nice neighbourhood, and then things kind of start to go wrong from there, and that's all I'll really say about this one. This had a really good twist at the end. I do think Frida McFadden, from what I've read of her so far, which is actually only the Housemaid series, she leaves you clues along the way, but she still like manages to throw you off at the same time. This was very different from the first two as well. I was a bit worried that maybe it would just be like a sort of bit of a rehash of the sort of the first two. This was very different and I did really enjoy it, and I'm definitely excited to read more Frida McFadden. She's just a very easy thriller author to read. I then read 8 Perfect Hours by Leah Lewis, and I gave this one 3 stars, and trying to think back of what this book was even about, I can't even remember the characters' names, so that's not really a good start. Kind of shows that this was just a bit forgettable read. So our 2 main characters, they get stuck in a snowstorm on the motorway, and no one can move anywhere, and they spend like 8 hours trapped on the motorway together, and they kind of like, so she needs to charge her phone, he sees that she needs to charge her phone, he invites her to sit in the car with him while she charges her phone, and they just kind of get to know each other from there. And they both are like he's like kind of in a relationship with a woman back in America where he's from, but kind of not. They're like childhood sweethearts who are like on and off again. And then she has come out of a very long relationship and she's not really over it. And then this guy comes back to town and he tries to rekindle the relationship. And yeah, that's how we go from there. And they keep bumping into each other. She thinks it's fate. And yeah, it was like okay. It just was a bit forgettable, to be honest with you. Like the premise was interesting. I just didn't really connect too much to the main characters. Like the side characters were a lot more interesting to me. And yeah, I don't think I'd really recommend this. Like I can't even remember the main characters' names. Don't remember much of what happened. So yeah, it was a fun read, but just a little bit forgettable, to be honest. And also it wasn't very festive either. Considering it's advertised as like a Christmassy romance, it wasn't very festive. I then DNF'd Acceptance by Jeff Vandermeer. This is the third book in the Annihilation series, or like Southern Reach series. So I really enjoyed the first one in this series. I didn't really love the second one, and the third one I read maybe like the first 100 or so pages and I just bored, and I just thought I don't really actually care what this is about. I just don't really feel like we were going to get answers. And then I did some research on Google and yeah, it didn't really seem like we were actually going to get many answers about what was going on in this series. So in Annihilation there's a zone called Area X, and there's a lot of unexplained things going on. No one can go in without the government's permission. They don't really know what's going on there, and they send like expeditions in there every now and again, and they all come back with some kind of issue. So the first, I can't remember exactly which way around, but like one of the expedition all came back and they all had cancer. One of them they all died. One of them they all came back and then they all committed suicide. Like it's not good place, and the government are researching it. And in Annihilation we follow a woman who volunteers to go into Area X and find out what happened to her husband who was on a previous expedition. I found this installment quite confusing, and I have just kind of lost interest in this series now, and yeah, I'm just not really that interested in it anymore. So yeah, DNF that one. I then read The Mistake by Elle Kennedy, and I gave this one 5 stars. I really loved this installment. So in this one we're following John Logan, or he's referred to as just Logan in this book, and Grace, and they meet at a party and he doesn't remember meeting her, and then he visits her dorm thinking that he's going to someone else's dorm, and they end up watching a film together and they're instantly attracted to each other and kind of get frisky. And then he kind of wants like a friends with benefits kind of situation. He's not really interested in a relationship because he is hung up over Hannah, which is his best friend's girlfriend, and Grace is a virgin, and he freaks out about taking her virginity and then messes up and then spends like the next few months trying to win her back. And yeah, this was just really cute. I loved the 2 characters in this one. I loved Grace, like she was so sweet, and I really loved like Logan's character development in this one. Like yeah, he just grew a lot. And again, like Elle Kennedy, she covers like cute romance and, you know, smart. She throws a lot of deep topics in there as well. So like Logan doesn't come from the best sort of family background, and yeah, I just really like how she explores things like that. It's not just like romance. But yeah, I'm really enjoying this series, and I can't wait to pick up the next installment. I then read The Couple at Number 9 by Claire Douglas. This is another thriller book, and we're following our 2 main characters. They move into a cottage which was owned by her grandmother, and they are renovating the cottage, they're renovating the garden, and when the builders are digging up the garden, they discover 2 skeletons, and then we just go from there. So we're discovering who the skeletons are, how did they get to be there, and maybe her grandma isn't as innocent in the whole thing as she is claiming to be. This was a really good thriller with a great twist. We had like 2 different timelines, so we followed our couple in the cottage, and then we followed the grandmother when she was recently like widowed and had her baby. I really loved the setting and the characters of this one. It was like not a small town romance, it was like a small town thriller. They're in a very tiny village. It was really fun to read. This is really well written, and I'm excited to read more from Claire Douglas. I then read Love Like Farms by B.K. Borison, and I gave this one 3 stars, although looking back on it I can't really remember what the characters' names were. I'm finding that this month. I'm struggling to remember all the characters' names in these books. So this was a cute festive romance. We follow our 2 main characters. She's just recently bought a Christmas tree farm and it's struggling, and she enters a competition on Instagram to have an influencer come to her farm and promote the farm, and yeah, she'll just get more revenue that way. So again, this is like a small town romance. It was very festive being set on the Christmas tree farm, but I just really didn't feel very connected to the characters. I feel like their love story, we were just like told they were in love, not really shown. And yeah, I definitely preferred the side characters again. And yeah, it was like friends to lovers. I don't know, it was just didn't really gel with this one very much. I loved the setting. I loved the sort of other sort of storylines going on. I just didn't love the main relationship. So I think I will continue on with this series because like I did love the side characters characters and we know that we follow them in later books. But yeah, I just didn't really love this one, so I gave it 3 stars. I then read The Forest Grimm by Catherine Purdy. This is a young adult fantasy book. So we follow our main character Clara, and in this village there's a book called the Book of Fortunes, and when you reach a certain age you can ask the Book of Fortunes for like a wish and it will grant it, and if you tell anyone your wish then the Book of Fortunes will like reverse the wish. There's a forest that surrounds this village, so they're very cut off from like the rest of the world. The forest starts like taking people, so people venture into the forest and no one can find them, and Clara's mum went missing. She was one of the first ones taken, and she decides that she's going to go and find her mother and find the rest of the people in the village that have gone missing. So I gave it a 4 stars. I really enjoyed this one. This is very fast paced, quite creepy and sinister in parts as well, which I wasn't expecting, and yeah, I just really enjoyed the plot. Like, the relationships were a bit, I mean, it's a YA, they weren't great, but it was a really fun read and also quite wintry as well. Like, I don't think it's like set necessarily in winter, but like the whole creepy vibes, like the forest, and yeah, I think it was a perfect time of year to read this one. I enjoyed it and I'm excited to continue on with the rest of the series when the second book eventually comes out. I then read What Lies Between Us by John Mars. This is another thriller book. So we follow a mother and daughter, and the daughter is keeping her mother chained up in the attic, and we slowly learn why. Again, it was like dual timelines, so we followed prior to our main character being locked up in the attic, and then while she's locked up in the attic, and just how, you know, not all families have a loving relationship, or like you do things out of love but it's not necessarily the right thing to do. The ending was a bit abrupt. I do think we could have maybe done with maybe another 50 pages to explore the ending a bit more, but there was lots of twists and I really enjoyed the writing style, so I'll definitely be checking out more from this author, and it was a fun thriller read. I then read Inner Holidays by Christina Lauren, and I gave this one 3 stars. So again, I didn't really love this one. I'm not really sure if like festive romances are really for me, to be honest. So in this one, our main character, whose names I've completely forgotten, she is kind of like trapped in a time loop. So every Christmas her family spends Christmas in a cabin with all of their like family friends that they've known for like 20-30 years, and they're driving home from the cabin, they get in a car accident, and then she wakes up and she's on the plane going to the cabin, and then basically like this keeps happening until she gets the timeline right, until she does the correct things. So like she gets to the cabin, she says something, and then she like falls over and she's back on the plane again, so we kind of keep looping around. So therefore it did become a little bit repetitive. Like by the time we got to like the last like timeline, I was just kind of like, oh, here we go again. Like you're just kind of reading the same thing over and over with like slight differences. Yeah, I didn't really love the characters. I felt like it was really hard to connect to them and their relationship, because obviously we kept restarting it. So like I kind of started to enjoy their relationship, and then we restart it again, and then none of that stuff really happened. It's a new timeline, so yeah, it was a bit difficult to get into. I didn't love the characters. Like it was a fun read. It was quite festive. It was set around Christmas in this cabin, but yeah, I just didn't really love it. I don't think it's my favourite Christina Lauren book. So I then read Wind and Truth by Brandon Sanderson. This took up quite a bit of the month because of the length, and I gave this one 4 stars. So I can't really describe the Stormlight Archive. Like, we're on book 5. What happens in book 1 is very different to where we are now, but it's Brandon Sanderson's epic fantasy series, which really ties together all his Cosmere works. Did enjoy this one, but I do think it was a bit long and overwritten in parts, and I think we could have cut quite a bit out, and this is a criticism that a lot of people do have of Brandon Sanderson. I've never had an issue with it up until now, but yeah, I do think we could have cut a lot out of this book and kind of still achieve the same result. The story arc was really interesting. We left it on a cliffhanger. Like, this is the first arc in the Stormlight Archive, so there's going to be 5 more books after this, but we're not going to get them for a while. So yeah, I was a bit like, oh, we've left it on a cliffhanger and we're not going to end the book for a few years. I did enjoy it, but there's a couple of character arcs I didn't really like, mainly like Kaladin and Dalinar. Like, I do speak about this in a reading vlog I read this over Christmas, and I will be posting that reading vlog after this video, so if you want my full thoughts on that, you'll get them eventually. But yeah, I just didn't love this as much as the other installments. Like, it was still really good, but yeah, I don't know, I'm not sure on this one. But yeah, I would highly recommend the Stormlight Archive still if you're into epic fantasy, but if you're not into slow epic fantasy, I wouldn't recommend it because it is very slow in parts. I then finished the year with The Most Wonderful Crime of the Year by Ali Carter. So in this one we're following mainly one thriller writer, but there is a male love interest. We don't get his POV, but he is kind of like the main character as well. So Maggie, and is his name Ethan? I think his name's Ethan. So Maggie is a cozy mystery writer. Ethan is like a leather jacket thriller writer. That's literally how he's described. And they're invited to spend Christmas with their biggest fan. And when they get there, it turns out their biggest fan is actually the biggest thriller author in the world, Eleanor, I can't remember her surname. I'm really bad with names. So they're invited to spend Christmas with her. Maggie has recently been divorced and she's just like, you know, she's just kind of going through life, not really doing anything, and Ethan's got some of his own issues going on as well. And all of a sudden, one night, Eleanor goes missing from inside a locked office and they have to solve what happened to her. There's been a few incidents where people have tried to basically murder her without, like, you know, the banister's wobbly and she trips and things like that. So they're trying to murder her but not outright murder her. And then there's also a romance between our two main characters, which did take over the plot of this story quite a bit. The thriller aspects weren't as good as the romance, and like I didn't love the romance. Like I gave this one 3 stars. It was okay, it was fun Christmas read. I do wish that the thriller aspects took a bit more of a limelight here. I do think like the romance was cute, but like it was very quick. Like this book is only set over like a couple of days and they go from like hating each other to loving each other. It's just a bit jarring. This is supposed to be an adult book, but the characters did feel really young. I do think Ali Carter, she writes a lot of YA, like I've read a lot of her book, and yeah, for her to sort of jump to adult, I don't think it came across very well. But yeah, I did enjoy this one and I gave it 3 stars. That's everything I read in December. So I'll just quickly go over my January TBR. So I've got a couple of vlogs planned for the month. So my first one is a mood reading vlog, which I am currently filming. That one I'm reading Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne, Off to the Races by Elsie Silver, The Score by Elle Kennedy, and Firefight by Brandon Sanderson. I'm also doing a like fantasy reader reads thrillers for a week video. So for that one I'm reading I Let You Go by Claire McIntosh, The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James, Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris, and Final Girls by Riley Sager. I'm not going to say too much about what these books are about because I will be covering that in my reading vlogs and then obviously in my wrap up. At the end of the month I'll be partaking in Final Book Support Group, which is hosted by Steph over at Steph Loves. I don't know if I get to all of these books, but the books that I'm wanting to read for that are The Final Gambit by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is the last book in the Inheritance Games trilogy. I then want to read Destroy the Day by Bridget Kemmerer. This is the 3rd and final book in this series. Then would like to read Lightbringer by Pierce Brown. This is the 6th book in the Red Rising series. This is like the 3rd book in the 2nd trilogy. I would then like to read Ghostsmith by Nikki Powell-Pretto. This is the 2nd book in the Bonesmith duology. So those are the books that I definitely would like to read. I don't think I'll get to too many more because that is quite a lot of books already, but we'll see, and I guess you'll find out in my reading vlogs and my wrap up. That's going to be it for today's video. Comment down below and let me know if you've read any of these books. What do you think? What did you guys think of Wind and Truth by Brandon Sanderson? I'd love to know people's opinions on that one in particular. Please remember to like this video if you've enjoyed it and subscribe to my channel for more bookish content, and I'll see you in the next one, guys. Bye!